What's up, world? What's up, world? What's up, world? It is Tuesday, and we're back for Mortgage Minded Mondays with a twist, as we're doing on Tuesdays. I'm Tavares Jones, licensed mortgage broker, licensed stockbroker, licensed life insurance and annuity broker as well. And I have
I am Hyacinth Henderson of the Henderson Financial Group. And yeah, so we're a full service financial planning and investment advisory firm. We're based out of Miami, Florida. We have clients all over the world. We do Mortgage Minded Mondays. Tavares and I, we are both mortgage loan originators. And we started Mortgage Minded Mondays to educate you and talk to you about mortgages, real estate, and everything in between. We know that real estate is a large part of one's portfolio or one's quest to build wealth. And for most people, the way to secure real estate is through a mortgage. So that's why we started Mortgage Minded Mondays to talk to you about that. So while I'm not doing Mortgage Minded Mondays, I am a registered investment advisor representative. I'm trying to read the comments at the same time. A registered investment advisor representative, a licensed stockbroker, an annuity and insurance broker as well, a life insurance agent as well, and a mortgage loan originator as well. Can you tell I read a lot? Yes, I read a lot. So, yes, no, Megan, thank you for joining us via YouTube. You said you missed us on yesterday, Monday. You did not. You can never, ever, ever miss what's for you. We were not live yesterday, but we are live today. And for those of you who are want to get a head start, next week is Labor Day, but we will be live on Labor Day as well, right?
that's a fact.
Okay, awesome. All right, so what do we have lined up today, T?
It ain't nothing but a number. Who was it? Aaliyah first?
Aaliyah, yes.
Aaliyah first, and then Pretty Ricky, I think. But
Mm,
I think you're the
maybe.
you out you I think
Don't
age
start.
wise.
Don't start.
So yes, it ain't nothing but a number.
Mhm.
But that's what they say. I wonder who came up with that saying, right? Because if you think about it, numbers really tell us what's going on. Because if you read your how much income, right? Because women want a man that make a certain amount of income, right? So y'all don't say income ain't nothing but a number when it is a number. When you checking your blood pressure, right? That's a numbers too. Also, your tire pressure, right? Your tire pressure is at a certain, it's a number. But if you don't have no air in your tires, where you going, right? So whoever came up with that slogan, we may have to question that, right? And definitely when it comes to your credit score, we know it's nothing. You know, it's more than just a number.
Mhm.
There's a lower that number, the more numbers you're gonna have to pay, the more dollars you're gonna have to pay. But we'll get into that in today's show. So I we thought that it was really good to have a show on credit, right? Because we speak about the importance of credit, we speak about the importance of savings and things of that nature, and we know we have to have a solid credit score. However, sometimes we don't know how to beef up that credit score, how to strengthen our credit score, right? So today's show, we figured why not take a deep dive on providing you guys information on how you can go back to the drawing board and go from a 650 to a 720, right? Or go from a 720 to an 850, right? And I've heard some people say, well, they got a 900 credit score. I never heard that. You never saw it. Don't know, how to get it. But hey, I guess that's their way of saying that my credit score is on the moon and the stars, right? So watch this broadcast or watch this show so you can also get your credit score launched up to the moon
Bringing
as
it
well.
up, yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned it, and I hope you all don't miss what we are putting down today. Because there's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of information that can help you not only now but in the future. So, Tavares, you mentioned you say your credit score is going to determine how much you're going to pay. And as you said that, I wanted to open up that door a little bit more because most people don't understand the way that a credit score affects the amounts of interest that they pay.
Yes.
So there's a common belief like, oh, you got to have good credit or bad credit, right?
Yeah.
Either you have bad credit or you have good credit. And there is no good or bad credit. I want you to start looking at credit as an indicator for how much someone trusts you and how much they will charge you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at it that way, it'll take some of the pressure off you from feeling like, oh my gosh, I have bad credit. I cannot qualify for anything, or I have bad credit. I can't get what I want to get. You can get whatever it is that you want to get, but someone is going to charge you more because of your credit history says we can't really trust this person to pay us back on time.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
So I want everybody to open up their mind like that. Open up your mind in that space and say, okay, when you're thinking about your credit score, I want you to think of it beyond a number. I want you to think about it as your leverage, your ability to tap into OPM, other people's money. Okay. So when you are expanding your consciousness and expanding your mind to understand that your credit score is your ticket to tell you how much you can tap into other people's money, then as you're listening to this, the thoughts that should be coming to mind is, how do I expand my score so that I can tap into other people's money more? Don't let it get you good, bad or good, or because there's some people, excuse me, don't let it get you down, and don't get caught up in the good or bad, because there's some people with a 750 credit score and they are not using that credit score to their ability, to the best of their ability. They're not using that credit score for leverage. They're not using that credit score to tap into other people's money. And we want you all to understand that when you have a credit score and you understand your credit score, you can tap into other people's money. Another thing I want to say is, before we get into the topic of credit scores so deep, the time is now. The time is now. The time for anything is right now. The problem is, you think you have time and you really, really, really don't. Time is so elusive. It's a construct, and things can change in a blink of an eye. So when I say that the time is now, we want to briefly think about what's going on in the world as far as housing prices, as far as interest rates and things like that. And I want to encourage you to get on the side of the fence that says the time is now. Don't be on the side of the fence that says things are too high. I can't do it right now. This is ridiculous. I'm waiting for it to go back down. Because what I want you to do is to speak to someone who bought their house 30, 40 years ago and look at their mortgage and see their interest rate was in the double-digit interest rates, and see that they paid maybe $40,000, $50,000 for a home. For those of you who are in South Florida, I want you to just go. It may be you, it may be your auntie, your granny, it may be somebody that you know that lives in Miami Gardens, and just look and say, they've been living here in Miami Gardens for 30 years. And can you believe they paid $50,000 for this house in Miami Gardens? And if they still have their mortgage note, can you believe they had a double-digit interest rate? So I'm saying that because I want you to understand that the world consistently evolves. And as the world consistently evolves, things consistently go up. I don't want to go back to nothing. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. I want to consistently grow and evolve. So when we plant this seed and we're opening the show with this, and I'm saying the time is now, you got to cut out the chatter. Prices are too high and things like that. Because understand, in 10 years from now, if a house is $375 right now, 10 years from now, you're going to look at the mortgage and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got this house for $375. It was such a good price.
That's a fact.
You're going to look at that. But you got to get out of the now, because sometimes we stay stuck in the moment and we can't see beyond. We don't have any foresight. So as you're listening to us talk about Mortgage Minded Mondays, know that if owning a property, know that if owning real estate, know that obtaining a mortgage, if that is in your list of goals, wishes, dreams, and hopes, don't let the media or anybody else tell you that now is not the time. Don't let the media or anybody else tell you that the prices are too high. Don't let the media or anybody else tell you that you don't have the credit score to qualify, which is why we're coming on here talking to you about a credit score. Because right now, if you have a 580, you can get a loan. Now, going back to what I said a minute ago, you can get a loan, but they're going to charge you more. So the question becomes, do I want to get a loan with my 580 credit score, with my 600 credit score, or do I want to listen to Tavares and Hyacinth and take the time to implement the steps and the tips so that I can increase my credit score? So now that we have done the, what do you call that in church? The praise and worship to open up, right? Now that we have done the praise and worship, we did the church announcements. And now that you understand, and overstand that the time is now. The time for you to prepare to buy a house is now. The time for you to prepare to own property is now. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, now let's get into talking about credit score. Because I don't want anybody on here to be discouraged or under the false belief that, oh my gosh, they're never going to do it. Because if you keep living, and I know that's my goal, is to keep living. If I keep living, I'm going to look back in 2023 and say, oh my goodness, I wish I would have bought that property for $375. I wish I would have bought it for $500,000. Right? All right. So let's get into the credit scoring, and y'all get ready. Get your pens and papers ready, and understand that it's always one step, two step. One step, two step. You can't go 1 to 10. It's one step, two step. What does that mean? You got to start here. When you start here and talk about the things and review the things that we're telling you to do, then you will eventually get to 10. But the problem is, if you jump from 1 to 7, when you get to 7, you ain't going to have your bearings. You're going to be shaking and like, well, how did I get here? Why did this happen? I listen to people tell me about mortgages and I didn't know I had this. How did you not know you had this? right? So, all right, let's get into it, T.
Yeah. So that was a wonderful introduction,
Mhm.
right? So we're gonna get right into the meat and potatoes, right? So your credit score. Y'all remember when we were in school, and the first day of school you get a syllabus, right? And on that syllabus it tells you how your assignments are weighted, right? So the goal is to get an A. However, you're going to have different assignments, and different assignments have a different weight to your overall goal. So your midterm exam and your final exams often have a heavy weight, right? If you have any projects to do throughout the semester, those are also heavily weighted. But things like homework and quizzes, those are not so heavily weighted, right? So you can miss a few homework assignments and still pass the class. You can fail a few quizzes and you can still pass the class. And your credit score is also made up that same way. So at the very top is going to be your payment history. So your payment history is 35% of your overall credit score. So when it comes to payment history, we want to think about your late payments, right? So you got 30, 60, 90. Of course, the overall goal is to make those payments on time, make those payments in full and on time. However, we all slip, right? Nobody perfect. Players mess up too, right? So you may, pay a day or two late, or you may pay a week or two late. So you want to try to get that payment in as quickly as possible when it comes to the deadline. And if you are late, right? So day, a 30-day uh, payment penalty will be a lot less than a 60-day and a 90-day payment penalty. So your payment history is a very vital part of your overall score. That's actually one of the most important part when it comes to your calculation. So basically, that's like, I don't even think we have to go into a deep understanding or a deeper dive on that, but we definitely can. But
Yeah,
self-explanatory.
I like that you started out the gate with the one that has the most weight,
Yeah,
the heaviest weight, which is your
yeah.
payment history. So Tavares just told you 35% of your credit score is based off of your payment history. Now, I want to break this down a little bit because most people don't realize that your due date in which your bill is due, whether it's a credit card, a car note, a mortgage, or whatever the case may be, is one thing, and being 30 days late is another.
Mm-hmm.
So let me break this down for you. So let's say, for ease of conversation, that your car note is due on the first of every month, and September 1st rolls around and you don't have the money to pay your car note. Something's happened, whatever the situation is, you aren't able to pay the car note. Most creditors will impose a late fee. If you don't pay it, let's say it's due on the 1st, and if you don't pay it by the 5th, then you have a late fee that's due. That late fee is then due, and then let's say you pay it by the 7th, you have to pay the monthly payment and the late fee. However, just because you paid your car note on the 7th instead of the 1st, that does not count against your credit as a 30-day late.
Mm-hmm.
And this is important to note because sometimes people get discouraged. Things can happen. We can experience things. I was going to say things can happen to us, but they happen for us. We can experience things and we can fall into that place and just get down there and lay there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like, oh man, I missed my car note date. It's the 5th, it's the 10th, it's the 15th. Well, I might as well wait until next month.
Yeah.
And what happens is you don't understand that although it may be the 10th and your payment was due on the 1st, for credit reporting purposes to the credit agencies, the credit bureaus, who are then going to calculate a credit score for you, you are not technically late until you are 30 days late.
Mm-hmm.
So what this means is, let's say your car note or whatever the bill is, the credit card, the mortgage is due on the 1st. And life has happened and you're experiencing something that has caused you to not to be able to pay your bill by the 1st or the 15th. I don't want you to lay down. I want you to get up. Get up and say, hey, what do I need to do? Because I got to be able to make this payment by the 30th, because I don't want to get that 30-day late. This is very, very important for you all to understand. Now, am I encouraging you to stretch your bills out and pay it closest to the 30th? I am absolutely not doing that, because we're in the financial services business. I don't want you giving away free money.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want you giving away those late penalties. Do you know how much companies make off of late penalties?
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to encourage you to say, okay, if something happens and you have to end up paying it past the due date, get back and pay it as close as possible. Because as Tavares said, a 30-day late has less of a negative impact than a 60-day late or a 90-day late. So when you roll into, okay, I missed the payment and now I am wallowing in the sorrow that I am experiencing and I am just laying down instead of getting back up, you actually worsen the situation. So look at your payment history as that. And for those of you who already have late payments that you've made years ago, we can only go forward. We move forward. So now that you understand that the bulk of your credit score is comprised of your payment history, now we need to understand that I need to make sure that I pay my bills on time. Like I tell my clients, if you have to eat ramen noodles, if you have to eat you some ramen noodles, drink you some shower water, do what you need to do so that you can make sure you are paying your bills on time. And before we go on to the second factor in your credit score, I want to encourage all of you to go to annualcreditreport.com. You can pull a free credit report every year for the low price of FREE. Notice I said credit report and not credit score. And this is important because you don't need your credit score to be able to know what's on your credit report. We want you to pull your credit report so that you can make an assessment of what is on there. We want you to pull your credit report so that you can check for inaccuracies. You can see if somebody is continuously pulling your credit, if there is fraud going on. You need to check your credit report to see if there are things that should have been taken off that were not updated yet. So we want to encourage you to go to annualcreditreport.com and pull your credit report so that you can be able to know where you stand. That's whether you have a credit score of your dreams or not. Still pull your credit report so that you can know where you are. And another thing, but wait, there's more. When you pull your credit report and you look at all the things that are on your credit report, I want you to remind yourself that you signed for this. You signed for it. You signed for this. You signed for this credit card. You ran up the credit card bill. You signed for this card note. You just had to have the card note and you just had to have it. You signed for this mortgage. You signed for these student loans. You signed for these things. And when you pull your credit report and you realize everything that you have signed for and that's on your credit report, let that be a moment where you stop and you reflect to yourself and say, if my goal is to buy my first property or additional properties, let me now be mindful of what I signed for. Let me be mindful of what I charge. Because if we're talking to you about your credit score and raising your score for the purpose of you obtaining a mortgage, for the purpose of you leveraging OPM, other people's money, at some point, you're going to have that kumbaya moment where you look at your credit report and say, why do I keep signing for all of this stuff? What are my goals? My credit report, your credit report is going to tell you what you value. Do you agree?
Most definitely. Your credit report and also your bank account, and the two are attached to each other. So when you're at Macy's, right, you at the checkout and you want to buy these shoes and this shirt, you just came in the store for the shoes and the shirt, and the young lady that's checking you out say, if you apply for a Macy's credit card today, you can save an additional 25%, right? But if your overall mindset is to save for a house, right, you're adding debt to your credit profile, right? And we'll get into what new credit does to your credit. You follow me? And like Heisey just said, you signed for it. So you have to make a decision. Is this 25% discount worth me a ding on my credit, right? And worth prolonging me with my long-term goal, which is purchasing a home, right? So
I love
decisions.
That. Yeah, I love that store example you gave because the interest rates on the store cards are the highest interest rates.
Yeah.
They're the highest interest rates. And a lot of times in that moment, you make an emotional decision and you're like, okay, I want to get the 20% off. And what I'm going to, and they'll tell you, you could just charge it and just pay it off, turn right around and pay cash. And you tell yourself that you're going to do that time and every other time. But what ends up happening 99% of the time is you charge stuff on your card and you don't immediately pay it off.
That's correct.
And another thing that can happen is you charge stuff on your card that you actually don't need, even if you can pay it off. It's not always about your ability to immediately pay it off. It's oftentimes about, do you even need this stuff in the first place? You know what I mean? So those store credit cards, that's a big one. What's the second one you got, T?
Second one is going to be amounts owed, right? So this is actually one of my favorites, the amount owed. I like this because allowance, right? So when we're children, sometimes we get an allowance from our parents or our grandparents. And our children, our parents are able to tell which child is responsible based off what they do with their allowance, right? So with me, when I got my allowance, I spent it all. I went to the corner store, I bought candy, I bought strawberry shortcakes, donut sticks, all kind of just junk food. I spent every dime of my allowance. Now my brother, he put away some of his, right? And my parents were like, well, we can give, Lawrence money, but Tavares is gonna eat it up. The money will eat his pockets, right? And the same thing works with your credit score. So your creditors, though they're not giving you an allowance, they're issuing you credit, right? So let's say you get a credit card and your credit balance your credit limit is $10,000. And as soon as you get that credit card in the mail, you run that credit card up. You go buy, Gucci, Louis, Prada. You go on vacation and you take the balance from, you go up to $8,000, right? You spend $8,000. You just got the card. You spend $8,000 right away. So what that's telling the credit company is you're spending what you have, right? And that in their eyes, in the eyes of the credit company, you're not responsible, and that takes your credit score down, which is the amount owed is 30% of your credit score. It makes up 30% of your credit score. So what you want to do is you want to stay below that 30% mark, and the lower you stay below 30%, the better off you are. So I would say utilize about 10% if you can, 15%, even 20%. But you definitely don't want to go over that 30% mark. So if you get a $10,000 card, I will use, about $3,000 on that particular card. Pay it off and pay it on time. And as you continue to do so, your credit score will rise. Well, some people may say, well, I only have $1,000 credit limit, so I only have access to $300, and I can't do much with $300. Well, what you can do is you can ask for a credit limit increase from your creditor, right? And as you increase your credit limit, then you can increase the amount that you use. However, I wouldn't recommend increasing your credit limit if you're not doing what you're supposed to do with the smaller limit that you have initially or originally.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's 30%, right? The amount owed.
Yes,
Another
30%.
term for that is the utilization rate. So for
Yes.
those of you listening, you may have heard the term utilization rate. And if you're preparing to buy a house, whether it's in 6 months or 6 years or 6 weeks or whatever it is, an easy way for you to understand how your credit utilization rate affects your credit score is to monitor your credit score on a monthly basis. So, although the website that I gave you, Annual Credit Report, does not give you a credit score, there are a number of other companies that do provide a credit score and credit monitoring. And when I say monitor it, I want you to look and see how your score is impacted. Let's say you have a $10,000 credit limit and you've charged $8,000 on it. Your score is going to drop.
Yes.
It's going to drop. You're going to see it. You're going to log in and you're going to see it drop.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's say next month you add $500 to it. So now you have $8,500 plus the interest. So maybe now you owe like $8,800.
Mm-hmm.
Your score, it's going to drop again.
Mm-hmm.
But then the third month, you say, you know what? I'm going to pay down my credit cards, and you pay $5,000 towards that $8,000 balance.
Mm-hmm.
So now your $10,000 credit limit, the amount that is owed is only $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
Watch how many points your score shoots up.
Mm-hmm.
You can see this happen in real time.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I encourage you to do this is so that you can educate yourself and start to learn how the credit system works. And then you'll be like, oh, first of all, I'd be like, this is all, it's all hogwash anyway, because all I got to do is pay down my credit cards or do this or do that, and my score is going to change. Your credit score is a snapshot in time.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're thinking about the things that you need to do, understand that your utilization rate, which is a fancy way for saying the amount that you owe against the limit that they have provided you with, is going to cause your credit score to fluctuate in real time.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're talking about credit cards, we understand that, especially in these times, the data has proven and is showing us that people's emergency funds and savings are being depleted.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas people had savings surpluses, now because of the price of things and this the way that things are going, those savings are starting to be depleted. Now, if your savings is being depleted and you still keep your same spending habits, follow what I'm saying? If your savings is being depleted, not because you control the economy, but that's just the way that things are happening and prices are going up. And because you did not increase your income, you're now tapping into your savings.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't looked at your spending habits, and you continue to say, I need this, I have to have that, this, and this. The next natural thing for you to do is to go to your credit card instead of swiping
Charge it.
that debit card, you're going to be swiping that credit card. Or maybe before you were swiping that credit card, but now you don't have the savings to pay the debt off on the credit card. So what I'm saying to you is, while you're understanding credit and credit utilization, and we're talking about this, we know that not everybody listening is charging up their credit cards to go on vacation, although a vast majority of you are.
Yeah.
A vast majority of you are. We see the numbers. But for those of you who are saying, Hyacinth, I ain't doing that, but I am using my credit to help me make ends meet, I want you to look at your budget. Tavares is a pro at budgeting. He can talk to you about budgeting. If you need to sit down and talk to somebody about budgeting, that's Tavares. You can schedule on our website. But you need to look at your budgets and say, how can I reduce this? And how can I increase that?
Yes.
What do you want to reduce? Your expenses. Because the things that you think you have to have and you need, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. So at this time, you want to look at that and then also ask yourself, how am I going to increase my income? Because it can be so sneaky and subtle. You'll go from, oh my gosh, I was able to pay off my cards every month, but now I'm not able to pay them off every month. And I know things are going up. I just got a notification for the office light bill. It's been debited from the account. And I'm saying to myself, I remember this time last year, the light bill was $100 less. Literally. I remember this time last year because I used to be like, dang, the office bill is this, my house bill is that. Can we swap? And now I'm looking, I'm like, dang, this is so subtle. So as we're talking about credit, as we're talking about utilization rate, understand that if you're preparing to buy a house or if you're preparing to stay or become financially independent, you're going to have to change. Times are changing, so you're going to have to change. So look at your utilization rate. That's a great point that you brought to the conversation, T.
Yeah, that was a good excellent point when you brought up the budget, right? Because as things go up, sometimes we don't adjust our spending, right? So when times change, we have to change with them or we'll get left behind, right? So making adjustments to your budget, making adjustments to your spending, making adjustments to your overall lifestyle can help you stay ahead and help you continue to win during these changing times. So the next one is going to be your length of credit history, and that makes up 15% of your credit score. So some of you guys may watch this video today and say, you know what? I'm following all the steps that they told me to do. I'm paying my bills on time. I don't owe more than 30% on my credit card, right? But you may have only had a credit card for 1 year or 2 years, right? And you want to display those good behaviors for a long period of time, right? So they're not going to give you a crown when you haven't displayed that you are a king or a queen yet, right? So 1 month, 2 month, 1 year, 2 years typically won't do it. You want to shoot the 7 years, typically the sweet spot. So you want to have a credit card for a long period of time and display those good behaviors of paying your credit card on time, keeping your balance low, and other details that we're going to speak about in this video. But you want to stretch that good behavior over, 7+ years. And a lot of people refinanced in 2020, 2021. And you probably had that mortgage for 10 years, 15 years before you refinanced. And you probably noticed right after you refinance, your credit probably took a dip, right? But it comes back up. And that reminds me of, oftentimes we want our life to be an upward trajectory, right? We want to start at the bottom and we want to go straight up to the top. But oftentimes we'll roll our ankle, right? Or we may get an injury, right? Metaphorically speaking. And sometimes we have to dip down for a little bit and then we go back up, right? So if you do a refinance or you cancel one of your cards that you've had for an extended period of time, it does impact your credit score. So a lot of times people will have a credit card for 5-6 years and they'll pay it off and they'll call that credit company and say, you know what, I want to close this account. But that's the worst thing to do. You want to keep the account open even if there's no balance. That helps strengthen your credit score. Why? Because the overall time that you've had that card for.
That's a great point. You took the thought out of my head because a lot of times
Happens
people
often.
will ask me, oh gosh, here we go. I'm gonna let you have that. You get to have that, see, okay? People, and I actually just had someone ask me this about 2 weeks ago. I was on a call and she was like, oh, such and such said that I should just close the account and get rid of the card and close the account. And I said, I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend that. Here is why. Remember, at the start of today's show, we said that your credit score is neither good nor bad. Understanding that your credit score is an indicator of how you use credit. It tells a story. It paints a picture. So you paying off your cars And closing the accounts says, ain't nobody lend her no credit.
Mm-hmm.
It's the equivalent of someone saying, I'm a safe driver, but never, ever, ever moving their car from the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
Can't you tell I'm a safe driver? I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell you're a safe driver because your car is always parked and you ain't drove nowhere.
Right.
So a lot of times people will come to me and they'll say, well, I should just close the account. And I say no, especially when you're going to qualify for a mortgage. And this also happens with people wanting to pay off their car.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to qualify for a mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think about it. Let's say the average price for a house in South Florida, let's just go with $400,000, right? You want to buy a house for $400,000 and you say, you know what, Hyacinth and Tavares, I listened to your show and I'm going to focus on my credit. I'm going to pay my accounts on time. I am going to reduce my utilization rate. As a matter of fact, I'm going to pay off my credit cards. I'm going to close my credit card account. I'm going to pay off my car. I only have 8 payments left, or, I have the money. I'm going to pay that off too. And I'm going to be ready to buy a mortgage. Well, you want somebody to loan you $400,000 and you have no credit.
Yeah.
You want somebody to loan you $400,000, and let's just say you keep one card and that highest limit is $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
So you want someone to loan you $400,000 and your highest trade line is $3,000.
Mm.
You want someone to loan you $400,000 and your credit history is so short because you keep closing accounts. You don't have anything for them to look back and see your credit worthiness. Remember,
you won't borrow yourself, or you won't lend out $400,000. You won't lend yourself $400,000 in that case.
Yeah. Would you? Right. Yeah. Would you loan someone? Think about this. Remember, it's a business. Would you loan someone $400,000 when you go and you like, let me see what you're working with? And they're working with accounts that have been closed. They don't have any high balance. Well, the most I'll give you is this. Or they may say, you know what? I'll give you 70%. You come up with a 30%. Right? Or they may charge you a higher interest rate. So when we talk about the length of credit history, this is very, very important. You have to be careful with paying off things and closing the accounts without taking into consideration what your future goals are. Because if your future goal is to mortgage a property, whether that's refinance, purchase, you're going to need to make sure that the lenders can look and say, okay, the length of your credit history, it says this person is responsible, so we will loan him a couple $100,000. Yeah. And another thing that you can do if you want to make sure you pay your cards off, after you pay your cards off, remember, it's a business. So if I have extended credit to you, think of this as a big pot. If I have a pot of money and I say, I'm going to give you some money, and the only reason I'm really giving you money because I don't know you, but I know that because you need this money, I'm going to charge you interest. And you're not only going to pay me back what I loan you, you're going to pay me back the cost to borrow from me. Yep. That's interest. Mm-hmm. That's what banks do. Yep. I'm going to loan this to you. I don't want you to pay me back quick, fast, and in a hurry. Mm-hmm. I want you to pay me back little by little because I want to eat off. I want that residual income coming in, that residual interest coming in. Mm-hmm. So if I loan you money and I say, hey, you can get $10,000 and you never use any of the $10,000, what do you think I'm going to do? Mm-hmm. Let me take my $10,000 back and give it to somebody over here who isn't as disciplined as you and who's going to take my $10,000 and spend it fast, quick, fast, and in a hurry. What am I saying? When you have these credit cards and you pay them completely off and you never charge anything to the credit cards, please do not be shocked or surprised when they close your account. And people are. That's why I'm saying this. They call her all the time. They just closed my account. What was in it for them? Right. You just had their money out there and you weren't using the money, so they couldn't make no money off of you. You're right. They closed your account. They closed your account and gave that money to somebody who they was going to be able to get some crumbs off of, because that's how banks make their money, from the interest. So what do, Hyacinth and Tavares? You're telling me not to carry a high balance. You're telling me I need to keep an account open. Well, this is where being responsible and using your credit cards for everyday things such as gas. I ain't even talking about the light bill. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about gas. Mm-hmm. Little simple things, your tolls. Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to run through the some pass. Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to get gas, nothing too crazy, but you show that I'm using a little bit of y'all money. Mm-hmm. I'm using a little bit of y'all money. And maybe I may pay it all off the next month. Next month, I may pay it down 20%. Mm-hmm. So you have to learn how to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn how to dance, because there's no sense in you saying I'm the best dancer on the face of this earth and you're sitting on the sideline all the entire party.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell that you're the best dancer because you've been sitting on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
In order for me to observe and see that you're the best dancer and you have the skills to pay the bills, I need you to get off of the sideline, get on the dance floor, and bust a one or a two step. Same thing with your credit. So again, now you see why we came to talk about this, because there are strategies and things that you need to be able to do so that you can be prepared.
Yeah.
We're looking at August 29th, 2023. Before you know it, we're going to be saying Happy New Year.
Yeah.
And before you know it, it's going to be August 29th, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, you're going to wish that you ran the tape back and you took notes, and every single day and every single week and every single month, you did the things that we told you to do. Why do I say that? Never feel like you don't have time. Never feel like, oh man, this is going to work for me. One step, two step. What's the fourth one?
Yeah. Another good strategy to add to that one is you can put those dormant cards on auto pay, right? So if you got Tidal Music or Apple, they charge off Apple Music?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tidal Music, Apple Music. So any subscriptions that you have that are regular on auto draft, instead of that money coming out of your debit account or your checking account, you could just attach those cards to your to those payments, right? And that way those cards can be tucked away in the drawer somewhere at the house, but they're still getting activity on a regular basis without you having to remember, oh man, I'm at the gas station, but I left that card at home that I want to use, right? So that if that card is sitting there, it'll still, have funds drafted from it, and then you can just, replenish those funds when you make a payment at a later date.
Yes, love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right,
So,
what we got next?
The next one is new credit, right? New credit, which is 10% of your overall score. So now we're winding down. So just a little recap. Your payment history was 35% of your overall score. Amounts that you owe were 30%, which is your balance to limit ratio. Your length of credit history was 15%. And now new credit is down to 10%. So notice we're coming down. And this is basically inquiries, right? And I get this question all the time when I say, okay, well, I need permission to run your credit. And as soon as I say that, they say, well, isn't my credit score going to come down after you run it? I was like, yes, but after we get you in the home, you pretty much won't use your card for anything else, right? And not only that, but it'll come back up, and it's not going to ding you too hard. Notice that it's only 10% of your overall score, right? And inquiries, they have a hard inquiry, and you also have soft inquiries. So hard inquiries, they last, and they're visible for about 24 months, right? And then your inquiries also have a 12-month impact. So they'll be on that credit report for a long period of time. However, if you continue to do the other things, like make your payments on time and use less than 30% of your credit cards, and your credit history, keep your credit history extended, then your credit score won't be impacted as much by a new inquiry.
Interesting. As you were thinking, I was thinking about the folks who are like, oh, but I want you to qualify me for a loan, but I don't want the inquiry to bring my credit score down. And then when we work through that and I pull your credit report and your credit card is maxed out, I'm like, you got bigger fish to fry.
Right.
We got bigger fish to fry because as we talked about, your utilization is 30% of your score. So think about that. Think about that. Also, this goes back to your example of you being at the checkout line and them telling you, don't you want to save an extra 15% or 20%? But that's an inquiry on your credit score.
Yes, it is. Yes,
it's an inquiry. So you're thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to beat the system because I'm going to go ahead. I know I got good credit. And then I'm going to pay it off right now because I got the cash and I'm going to tap and this and this. But you're driving your score down. And so when it comes time for us to qualify you for a loan, you're like, well, why is my score? You got a long list of inquiries. So you want to be very protective of who you give access to your credit score, who you give access to your credit score to. You want to be very protective of that. Don't let them entice you with the shiny objects like, oh, you can save 15%, but in the long run, that's going to hurt you because it's going to drive your score down. And another thing as it relates to inquiries, we want to make sure that when we're pulling our credit report on annualcreditreport.com, that the inquiries that are on there are inquiries that we actually gave people permission to do.
Yes.
If you go on there, you have all types of inquiries that that you didn't apply for. That's an indicator that maybe someone may have access to your information.
Yeah.
So you might want to go ahead and put a credit freeze on your account. And I should have brought the information up to tell you how to do that. Maybe I'll drop it in the comment section. You might want to put a credit freeze on your account so you can make sure people aren't using your information to apply for all types of things, especially now when fraud is at an all-time high. So you want to pull your credit report and inspect it. You want to inspect it and go through and look at these inquiries. And if you look and all those inquiries are yours, you might want to say, have a talk with yourself, because let me tell you how, I like to use examples. If you pull your credit report and you have 10, 15, over 5 inquiries in the past 12 months, the message that you're sending is you for everybody. Like you won't, you just out here. You for everybody. Okay, can you give me some? Can you give me some? It's almost like a person of interest, a man. You like, I don't want you. I just seen you trying to talk to him, her, and you was trying to talk to him, and now you over here in my face. Like, no, sit down somewhere. So you have to think about that, and that's the message that it also sends to the creditors as well. Why you keep applying for all this credit? What is going on? Why is this person going from this person, that bank, that lender, this lender, asking for some money? Are you thirsty? And we will have situations where the lenders will actually say, have your client explain all these inquiries. Yes. What you want to say? I'm out here for everybody. I just want to get a little taste of everything. Yeah. So you want to think about that. Although it's worth 10%, it makes up 10% of your credit score. You still want to be cognizant of that. You want to be mindful of that and be like, nah, you can't have access. I know I look good. I know you want to get this this interest. I know you want to save me 20%, but no, you can't have access to my credit. I'm worth more than that.
Yeah. And the very last one is going to be your overall credit mix. And that also makes up 10% of your credit score. So to get a dope credit score, you want to have some credit cards on there. You want to have some installment loans. You want to have retail accounts. You want to have mortgages and also finance company accounts. So a little bit of everything. So a credit card, we all know what the credit card is. Installment loans, those are going to be like car notes and personal loans and things of that nature. Something that you have to pay off in incremental fashion. Also student loans, that's a installment loan. Retail accounts, that'll be, Macy's, Home Depot, etc. Mortgage loans, purchase a home, rental property, etc. And finance companies, so like your Discovers, your American Express, etc. So you just want to have a good mix of that. You don't want to be too heavy in one department and nothing in other departments. So some people just have all credit cards and no installment loans, no mortgages, no American Express. So just develop a nice mix. I think that's pretty much all I have for that one.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because sometimes people will say, so one of the tricks or some tips that people will hear is, if you want to get your utilization rate down, remember that's 30%. So utilization rate is the difference between the amount that is available to you, which is your credit limit, versus the amount that you have charged up. So as an industry key, we like to suggest that you keep your utilization rate under 30%. That means if your credit limit is $10,000, you have not charged more than $3,000, and you keep it under that. You keep your balance under that. However, oftentimes people are way above the 30% utilization rate. So what you'll hear people suggest is go apply for more credit. Because if you apply for more credit and another company gives you a $10,000 credit limit, now you have a $10,000 credit limit on one card that has a $3,000 balance, and then you have another $10,000 credit limit on a second card that has a $0 balance. Your total credit is $20,000. You owe $3,000. Your utilization rate is now 15%. I know that went fast. I need a whiteboard. I don't have one today. So what people will do is they'll say, oh, let me go apply for another card so that I can bring my utilization rate down and my score can go up. And they do it and they don't see the score move the way that they want it to move. And that is because of what Tavares just mentioned, is the mix of credit. So if you have all credit cards and no mortgage, no installment debt, then your credit score is not going to move, or your credit score is not going to look the way that someone else's credit score looks when they have a healthy mix. You may have to run the tape back on that. So as you're hearing these people say, oh, do this or do that, be mindful, because sure, you can get more credit, but all you got is credit cards. And they're going to say, where's your mix of credit? Do you have an installment loan? And an installment loan, or an installment type of loan, or installment credit, is one that's different from your credit card, because we know your credit cards, your monthly payment is based on your monthly balance. So if you owe $3,000, your payment is going to be based on $3,000. If you owe $5,000, your payment is going to be based on $5,000. This is different with a car loan. You buy a car. Let's say you buy a car. How 60, 50? How much?
Let's say 50.
$50,000. Let's say you buy a $50,000 car, and you buy this $50,000 car, and your car note is $350. And you've been paying this for 2 years. They're never going to tell you, hey, because your balance started at $50,000 and now you owe $40,000, your payment is going to be reduced from $350 to $200. They're not going to say that. That's called an installment loan. It does not matter what the balance is. Your installment amount is never going to change. That's also something that happens with a mortgage. And a lot of people call here all the time and they say, I don't understand. And it's usually people who had their mortgages for 20 plus years. I don't understand. I've been paying this and now my mortgage balance is this and they haven't changed my payments.
Yes.
You need the HELOC we talked to you about for that. If you want your payments to be based on your balance, then we need to talk about the HELOC. You need to call us at 305-825-1444 for that. But I'm explaining this because these are things that I have realized that because we eat, sleep, breathe this, it's second nature to us. We know this. But we also get the calls and people are like, huh? This is a foreign language. Just as whatever your subject matter expertise is, there is some stuff that is second nature to you. When I'm on the phone getting some help for something and they talk fast, I'm like, hold on, this is what you do. This is not what I do. If you want to talk about money, I got you. But what you're explaining to me, this is not my area of expertise. And so what I'm saying to you is we're sharing this information because we know not only is it something that is needed, it's something that you need to understand. So that you can then make a different type of decision. You can then make different decisions because when you understand, then you can understand how to play the game. Because there's no sense in you, Tavares, you know people who I got a 750 credit score and they ain't got nothing but some name brand stuff. And you have no assets.
And that's the whole purpose of a dope credit score, right? Because we all heard grandma say, I got 800 credit score and she's not using it for anything else, right? And the whole purpose of having a dope credit score is to utilize it, right? That's just like, so your credit score is not a firearm. So you want to have a firearm for protection. Hopefully you never have to use your firearm, right? However, your credit score, on the other hand, you want to utilize that because it gives you access to other people's money. You're showing and improving how responsible you are with managing your own money. So you're like, you know what? I have this report to show how accurate or how good I am with money. Let me borrow 400,000. Let me borrow 500,000. And as you let me borrow this 400,000, I'm going to purchase a rental property. And this rental property is going to have 4 units in it, right? And I'll put a tenant in each one of those units and have each one of those tenants pay me $1,000 per month, right? So my payment on this $500,000 loan, it may be $2,000 per month, but I'm making $4,000 off the debt that I just acquired. So you want to utilize that credit to put you in better situations. Now there's good credit, or there's good debt and there's bad debt. Bad debt is going to be credit cards, your car notes in most instances, any debt that you are not making any money off of, right? It's bad debt. However, good debt, like your cash value life insurance policies or rental properties, debt that you have, but you're making profit. You're making money off of having that particular debt. Some people even use car notes. Nowadays, you can use car notes, and you can put those on Turo and, what's the other one? Hire Car and other different websites and apps and stuff like that, where you can just collect money off of that particular debt. So all debt isn't bad debt. And you also want to use your credit score. That's the whole purpose of having it. Now, as you use your credit score is going to dip down just a little bit. It won't crash, right? But it's going to come back up. Why? Because you develop that good character and that good behavior, and you know how to move with your credit to bring it back up. So it's going to dip down a bit, but don't worry. It's normal.
Yeah. the ebbs and flow of life,
Yeah.
right? But that's why you come up with a goal,
Mm-hmm.
and you say, okay, I have a goal. I want to add to my real estate portfolio. This year, I'm going to qualify for a house. This year, I'm going to qualify for a property. This is my goal.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look back, look forward.
Mm-hmm.
The only time I want you to look back is when you pull your credit report and then say, okay, this is where I stand right now on August 29th, 2023. But from here on out, I'm moving forward. And this is very important because what I see a lot of times is when people have mishaps with their credit, they get defeated.
Yes.
And it's like, how long has your credit score? My credit score has been 500 for 5 years. Why?
Mm-hmm.
It's because you've laid down.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to lay down.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to lay down. Your credit score has been 500 for 5 years, and you're like, well, how am I going to get credit? Nobody's going to loan me credit. Well, start with the secure credit card.
Yes.
Start by asking someone to add you to their credit, someone that you know, not a stranger. I'm not talking about trade line.
Yeah.
Someone that you know, a relative, to add you to their credit account. There are ways that you can start where you are to start to increase and move, because if you plan on continuing to live, then at some point you're going to need your credit.
Mm-hmm.
And as Tavares said, it's not like a firearm. You hope you never have to use it. You're going to need your credit so that you can then step into the big leagues and borrow other people's money. We like to borrow other people's money.
Mm-hmm.
There's a myth in the Black community: don't owe anybody. That's antiquated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that again. I don't know about other people's communities, but in the Black community, there is a myth that you don't want to be in debt. You don't want to owe anybody. Pay everything cash. Let's see how far you get with that.
Mm-hmm.
What we want you to understand is that there is a way that you can tap into OPM, other people's money. If you do it in a right way, or I don't want to say right or wrong, but if you do it in a certain way, you can tap into arbitrage, where you're borrowing other people's money and you're making more than the cost that they're charging you to borrow that money.
Yeah.
This is how we do this. This is how the big dogs do it. This is how you do it in the big league. So there are some mindset shifts that you're going to have to incur. There's some mindset shifts that are going to have to take place. You're going to have to get out of that mindset of, oh, bad credit, good credit, bad debt, good debt. You're going to have to look at this thing as a strategy and start doing things in a certain way and say, this is my game plan. My plan is to live to 120. So I know that I always need to be strategizing for my credit.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. If you know that you have a plan, if you want to go ahead tomorrow, then you might not care about your credit.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to continue living in this incarnation, then you want to come up with a strategy for your credit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it may not even be for a mortgage because you're thinking about a mortgage right now. It may be for something else that you need to leverage. Yeah. And while we're talking about credit, let's and qualifying really quickly before we go, we're talking about strategy and planning for the future. For those of you who are self-employed or in a cash business or 1099 or whatever the case may be, and you don't want to show any income, you want to get all cash and not put it in the bank, you don't want to have a paper trail, how you gonna qualify for a mortgage?
Right.
So again, this is planning. If you like, all right, I had a good time, I ain't paid the IRS or whatever the case may be, I've been stacking this cash, putting it in a hole in the basement or whatever for the past 2 years, but now I want to get prepared. You're gonna have to put that money in the bank and pay taxes on it.
Yeah. And oh, go ahead, my bad.
I was gonna say that's it. Just goes along with the topic of strategy of starting now, so that tomorrow you can be prepared. Go ahead, T.
Great points. So and then when you start, so Heisey just gave you guys a bunch of nuggets on how to get started, right? So when you get started, you may have some bumps in the road, right? And those bumps in the road, we call those derogatory marks in the credit industry, right? So you may have some foreclosures, you may have some repos, you may have some collections. Some credit cards may go to collections, or you may owe Comcast, right? You never returned their Wi-Fi box or whatever the case may be, and they put you in collections for it. Small stuff like that. Just a little story, right? So I was working with a client. She needed a 700 credit score. She had a 690, so she was just 10 points away, right? So had her go in and pay off some debts. I think she paid off like about 4 credit cards, paid them off. And we had high hopes that paying off those 4 cards would take her over the 700 mark, where she only needed 10 points. However, in collections, some companies will hide out, right? So they won't have you in collections right away where it's able to be seen on your credit report. However, they do watch you, right? If you owe them, they're going to watch you for a while. And collections actually saw her pay off those 4 debts, right? And they say, you know what? Since you're in the mood of paying people off, you owe us. Now we're going to present ourselves on your credit score. However, we didn't know that, right? So we went ahead and we ran after she paid off the 4 cards. We're like, perfect. Let's go ahead and run a credit score now. So we ran the credit score, and it dropped her about 60 points. So we only needed to gain 10 points. It dropped her about 60 points. So it's like, wow. So as I went through the credit report, and I found collections. It was a collection, small collection. It was like maybe about $600 or something like that, $642. And I'm like, wow, a $642 collection dropped their credit score by 60 points. Right now, it's easy to get it off. She'll just pay the collection, get a letter of deletion, and then we'll move forward. That should, bring her up above. I think we got an estimate. It should go up to about 735 or 740. So we're looking forward to that. So it's a way to do things. So sometimes you're going to have some bumps in the road. You're going to have some turbulence, right? But you got to steadfast and persevere and keep stepping forward. So just wanted to share that with you guys because I learned something new. So as I learned something, as we learn, we like to share with you guys to help you guys learn as well. So the creditors, if that you guys, let's say you haven't paid them for 10 years and you're like, oh, it's not coming up on my credit report. I hear that a lot as well. I do owe somebody, it's not coming up on my report. But as you start to pay things down, they may pop up and say, hey, since you're in the mood to pay people, that we trying to get paid too. And rightfully so. I would do the same thing. Absolutely. I thought it was clever. I was like, wow. And she was blown away as well. She actually laughed because she got the money in her bank account to pay it off. It's small. Yeah, so just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story because so many people can relate to that.
Yeah, for sure.
They get into this pissing contest with the collecting agencies. Yeah. I don't owe them this or this. Or somebody on Instagram said that the collection agency didn't do this. I didn't have the original debt with them and I had it with this. And so you're like, well, what are you doing? Yeah. You want to be right or you want to move forward? Yeah. So think about that. Some of you out there watching this may have some collections from way back when, and maybe you didn't turn in the next cell phone or you turned in the next cell phone, but they said you didn't turn it in because you missed the charger or your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend or somebody left the lights and they were supposed to pay the deposit. Whatever your story is, we hear them all the time. Whatever it is, this is the moment that you say to yourself, do I want to be right? Or do I want to move forward?
Right.
Do you want to be right or do you want to move forward? Because you don't want to be willing and dealing and then get ready and like, okay, now I'm not sure of the conditions of the loan, but let's say she was buying a house and she was under contract for a property that was in high demand and they have multiple offers. Here's the thing, especially in this competitive market that we're in now. Let's say you win the contract and you put a contract in the contract, it'll say that you need to have your approval by 15 days or whatever the case may be. And they have backup offers lined up that are higher than yours. And now you've been playing with the collection agencies and all this stuff. And now you got to rescore and you have to wait. You could very well lose the deal.
Yes.
So you have to think about all these things. Like, do you want to win the battle or the war? Which one do you want to do? We're going to just think about the strategy. So that's why I keep dropping these little nuggets so you to think about strategy. Yeah. It's not only about right now. Yeah. Okay. So I think we've given them a lot for today's Mortgage Minded Mondays on a Tuesday.
Most definitely.
I don't have anything else to add. Do you, T?
No, it was good. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We encourage you guys to like. We encourage you guys to share with other people. The holidays are coming up, right? So the holidays are coming up. So let's start some conversation instead of talking about housewives. And I know football season just started, and that's cool and all. But let's have some financial related topics, passed around the table as well. So as y'all passing different dishes around, let's bring up some financial topics. It don't have to be so much of a secret anymore, right? I'm not saying tell everybody all your business or expose yourself financially completely. But no, let's just spark up some good conversation because you never know how you can help each other at the table. You never know who at the table may need this information that you can pass it on to them. And let's just grow together.
Yeah, I like that.
Let's grow together.
I like that you mentioned the holidays. And as you do that, don't get tied to the outcome. I'll hear people say, well, I tried to tell this person, but they didn't listen to me. You did your job. Yeah, sure. You did your job. When you shared the information, you have done your job. And you can share the information and also say this is why you ain't getting no gift because I've been tapped into my finances and this is what I'm focused on. Let me tell you about it. Right. So I'm not spending money on things anymore. Right. So you ain't getting no gift, but let me give you the gift of this. Right. And so it's a great way to have these very important conversations because we have to do better. We have to do better. There's no time like the present. I started the show with that. If you joined us late, make sure you go back to the beginning of the show and watch the show. And even if you've been here for the beginning, make sure you run the tape back, take some notes. You may may need to rerun this so that you can have refreshers to kind of keep you motivated and inspired as you go along this journey. Because if you're watching the news and if you're on social media, there is more information there to suppress you and to keep you further away from your goals and your dreams than there is to encourage you and to lead you towards your goals and your dreams. So if you're watching everything that's going on, make sure you insert this video into your roundup of watching things on a regular basis. Right. All right. Thank you all, everybody, for being here today. We appreciate it. If you have any questions, if you want to talk over a scenario one-on-one, be sure to give us a call at 305-825-1444. You can also visit our website and schedule an appointment right on our website. You can click on Tavares's name. He has a link to schedule you for a mortgage consultation. If you have some questions, just give us a call or schedule it. This week is a little hectic. If we don't get to you this week, then next week should be lighter. And we'll get back to you as soon as we can. All right. Until then,
we'll see you next week.
Peace.